Hi, this is David Wicks, the Director of Instructional Technology at Seattle Pacific University. And today I'm going to talk to you about 10 questions that students frequently have about bPortfolios as they're beginning that process. And so we're going to look at 10 questions, including what is a blog, because our portfolios are based on blogging technology. We're going to talk about what is an e-portfolio or electronic portfolio, because that's the term that's often used in the literature. Then we'll talk about what is a bPortfolio, which is the term we use at Seattle Pacific University. We want to identify who our audience is for our portfolios. We want to look at what you want to blog about in your portfolios. We want to talk about how often you should blog, discuss privacy concerns, and then we want to specifically focus in on tags and categories and make sure that you understand what the purposes of those two different technologies are. So let's go ahead and get started here. And so our first question is, what is a blog? And Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as a website that contains an online personal journal with reflections, comments, and often hyperlinks that are provided by the writer. And this is one of the reasons this definition is something that helped us decide that we wanted to use a bPortfolio or a blog as a portfolio tool, because we are looking for students to journal, to write a journal where they're reflecting, where others can comment on their reflections, and where students can provide evidence using hyperlinks to papers that they might write. What is an electronic portfolio? Well, as this diagram from Helen Barrett shows, it can be something that is both a conversation and a presentation. Dr. Barrett, who's considered one of the foremost experts on portfolios, says that there are really two types of portfolios. There's a working portfolio, which you're seeing in the yellow, and then a presentation portfolio, which you're seeing in the blue. And she describes a working portfolio as electronic documentation of learning. And it's organized in reverse chronological order so that our newest learning is always at the top. And so this is again why a blog is an important tool to use, because as students post in a blog, the latest post always shows at the top, and older posts move down without students having to manually reorganize the page. This portfolio includes artifacts or digital evidence to support evidence of student growth in learning. So you are going to see examples of their writing, presentations they've given, examples of their students' work. And so Dr. Barrett refers to this as a portfolio as process with an emphasis on reflection. So as you're learning, you're reflecting on your learning. The second type of portfolio is a presentation portfolio. And this is what we're seeing in the blue. And this portfolio is organized around standards, and it provides final works of evidence that showcase the best of our work and the best of our artifacts. And she refers to this as a portfolio as product. She also says we need both of these types of portfolios, and that is why we've decided that a blog is the best tool for creating both a conversation and a presentation, having both workspace and showcase, and having a portfolio that is a process as well as a portfolio that is a product. And so that leads us to what is a bPortfolio. And here's an example of one of your colleagues' portfolios. And we combine both the working and the presentation portfolio into one portfolio and call it a bPortfolio or a blogging portfolio. Students use WordPress.com to create portfolios where the individual blog entries have links to papers, projects, etc. That serves as the working portfolio, and these working portfolios then are categorized with standards and keywords, and those then are used to organize meta-reflections, which provide the foundation for the presentation portfolio. So as you begin to post reflections and artifacts in your very first course, you will tag these with keywords. You'll categorize them with the standards, and that will allow you to organize all your posts so that when it's time to have a meta reflection on the entire standard, you will be able to quickly click on a category and review all the posts that you've made related to that standard. So you should be able to look back and see growth in your learning, as well as evidence of competency on all of your program standards. So who's the audience for your blog? Well, one of the major reasons we use WordPress.com is so that portfolios can be open for viewing and feedback from other educators around the world. This may sound a little scary at first, but primarily those other educators include your peers. So these would be people that are taking classes with you. They're encouraged to reflect or to read your blog and to provide you feedback. And it's always good when you're first starting the program to find someone with common interests and have a blog buddy relationship with that person, so that you're reading each other's blog posts for typing errors and for content, and giving each other feedback on posts. But it also could include colleagues at your school. It could include your administrator. It could, and it will definitely include your professors and other professional educators, but also experts around the world. I had a blogging project in a course where the author of the book was reading students' blog posts. So you want to make sure that you understand that this isn't a personal journal that you're hiding under your pillow at night. It's something that everyone can see, and by everyone, that includes possibly your students and their parents. Now, we don't encourage you to provide identifying information about people, but I think you want to. We'll talk about privacy in a second here, but you want to write with the idea that anyone could be looking at your blog posts, and you're being open about your learning, but you're not using this as any kind of device to make possibly comments that would be negative about your school or your students. That's not at all the point of this activity. What are we supposed to blog about then? Well, you read the cartoon here. Just because I do not have any idea does not mean I do not blog about it. So that somewhat implies that a lot of times people blog about nothing and really just talk to hear themselves talking. But hopefully, you'll find that in your courses, in some cases the instructor will assign you blog prompts, and will maybe say on a weekly basis you need to reflect using this strategy and post that in your blog, or your instructor may not give you a prompt and you may just be asked to do it on your own. We're not looking to force reflection, but sometimes we need specific prompts to help us know what to reflect about and give us some ideas on what we should be finding important in the readings or in the discussions in the class. So Both are acceptable, and encourage you, if you're not being asked by your professor to blog, that you still do it, not necessarily weekly, but as you're learning, post reflections about the things that you're learning. And so that brings us to our next question: how often should we blog? Well, first, as often as required in a class. But if there isn't a course requirement, then you should try to make several entries. During a 10-week course, I would think, somewhere between 5 and 7 entries would help you to keep a record of what you learned during that course and continue to reflect on standards related to that course, so that when you get to the end of your program, you will have that record. You'll have those assignments that you've posted as artifacts in a place where you can use them for your meta reflections. So a little bit more about the privacy concerns. Let me clarify that we are asking you to reflect on your learning. We are not looking for you to share specific stories about colleagues or administrators or students. So the basic rule is that if you wouldn't be comfortable sharing a post in a newspaper that was available to anyone, you shouldn't share it in your blog. Some students are very excited when they find out there's privacy settings in WordPress, and they want to turn all of those on, and then they feel more at ease with sharing. But I don't really think that's necessarily a good idea. If you have reasons to turn the privacy setting on, that's your choice. But I would still strongly encourage you to refrain from posting anything that you feel you couldn't share if the privacy settings were turned off. If you've got things like that you want to discuss, talk specifically with your professor about that topic. It's not necessarily a blog topic. Maybe something that fits into another form of writing that isn't in a public format or a digital format. But do please have that conversation with your professor rather than making it a blog post if you don't feel you could share it publicly. And if you have more concerns about privacy, please talk with your chair. They can make recommendations. Your chair can make recommendations, and you could also contact me if you have concerns, and I'd be glad to help you. So let's move on to the topic of tags and categories. So how are tags and categories used to organize content? Well, let's first define these terms. So tags are keywords that are used to categorize blog posts. So you will choose keywords that are important to you, and you can add a new tag at any time in a post. Common tags include things like course ID, author name, important terms from the content being studied. So here's an example from a student's, and you can see at the very bottom that this student saw important tags as citizenship, the name of the course, and technology. Now another student may look at this same post and come up with some different tags. The tagging is your choice. These are terms that you're using to identify what's important to you in the post that you create. Categories, on the other hand, in WordPress serve as predefined tags, and these are used to organize posts into major categories for later reflection. And so in our case at SPU, we use program standards for our categories. So this allows you to continually reflect on the program standards for each new post you write. When you start to create a new post, off to the right you will see all the categories. So when you're finished with a post, you can quickly check mark the standards that are addressed in the post that you created. So again, in this case, you can see that the student felt that there were 3 standards that were addressed in this particular post. And keep in mind that this post, while it's short, it also includes an artifact that someone could click on. And so the tagging should also provide information about any artifacts that are included with the post. So a question that's often asked is can I create my own categories? Well, here's an example of categories in one student's blog, and as you can see, they're not all listed there, and that's because this particular student hasn't reflected on all the categories as of yet. So they're only seeing the categories that they've reflected on showing up on their blog page. And when they ask the question, if anyone asks the question, can I create my own categories? The answer is no. The categories are reserved for program standards. If you feel like you have an important topic that you think should be a category, make it a tag, at least while you're working on your degree or your certification. And then once you're finished, you could convert it. But create tags for topics that are important to you but you don't feel are clearly represented by the standards. And clicking on a category, the reason those are reserved is it should allow you to see all posts related to that category. And we want you to use this because you're going to be clicking on, for example here, clicking on Standard 12 Professional Citizenship should allow you to see all the posts that you've made about professional citizenship, and therefore when you're writing your meta reflection you'll be able to see that clearly. Adding more categories to this list I think would take away from what we want you to do, which is to quickly see these standards in your program and be able to check mark the ones that apply rather than working from a longer list. Okay, so then with tags, what tags should we actually be using is a common question that comes up. So when you add tags to a post, you're creating what's considered to be a folksonomy or a personal taxonomy. So these are terms that are important to you as a teacher and as a learner. And you're creating these tags to help you remember when you reflected on a certain topic. So it could be something like the course ID, which you see in this tag cloud. It could be an author's name for the book that's being used in the course. It could be the unit that you're studying or other key terms from the unit. But by tagging, you're allowing yourself to see what terms are important to you. And remember that the size of the word in the tag cloud, so we're looking at a tag cloud here, indicates how many times you have used that word as a tag in a post that you've created. So we can click on one of these tag terms and then immediately be taken to all the posts related to that tag. And this will allow us to see how our thoughts are possibly changed on one of these. So one of the tags in this particular tag cloud is interactive learning. And so by clicking on that, you'd be able to see reverse chronologically all the reflections on that one term, and you'd be able to see at the very top your latest thoughts on that term, and at the bottom your earliest thoughts. So your early posts may have lots of questions in them where you don't understand and you're asking for more information about the topic, where your later posts may more clearly identify that you understand the topic and that you are beginning to develop your own thoughts on how you might use the topic in your teaching. Well, I think that's it for now. That takes us through 10 questions that students often have. And if you have more questions, I'd encourage you to email me, call me, find me on Twitter, and we can talk about how any questions that you may have about the bPortfolio. Thanks for listening.